welcome back to my kitchen. One of the things I recently purchased was a food dehydrator. You may think, why would you want something like that? Well, first of all, I'm a lover of jerky. And to be honest, jerky bought in the store is incredibly expensive. It's also loaded with all kinds of preservatives and other unhealthy things. So I don't eat it very often, but I would like to. But in order to do that, I think I need to make it myself. So one of the purposes behind owning a food dehydrator is making jerky. But there's so many other things you can do with it. You can dry your own spices. You can make fruit and vegetable chips. Just all kinds of interesting things. So we're trying this out for the first time today. And what we're going to do is we're going to test it out on something fairly simple. We're going to make apple chips. Now, I have bought a number of red delicious apples, and I have read all the instructions, as you know I have, for everything. I do want to point out a couple of things as far as instructions go. First of all, one of the things it talks about is having uniform slices of things so they all dry evenly. So to that end, I bought this mandolin slicer. Very cheap, like $15 at Amazon. And I'm going to use that to slice up these apples, and then we're going to put them in the dehydrator and see what comes out the other end. So let's go ahead and get started with slicing the apples. Now I'm going to core them, and then I'm going to slice them, and then we'll dry them and see what happens. I'm kind of excited about this. I think it could turn out to be a nice long-term project, and I'll be able to make myself nice healthy treats that don't have a lot of bad things in them, like all the preservatives that they put into stuff. So let's go ahead and slice up these apples, and let's go ahead and get started with drying. So the first thing we're going to do is core these apples. To that end, I bought this apple core. It's got nice teeth ends, and it can open up and let the core out once you've cored it. So let's core these 5. Now these are small. The instructions did say to use smaller apples, so that but these may be a little too small. They're very small, but we'll see how they go through the mandolin here. All right. So we're going to start with these 5. If we need more, we'll make more, but we won't know. I don't know how the area coverage will be in the drying trays. So now this mandolin did come with this protective glove. They highly recommend using it. I will be using it. I've had enough finger cuts and things like that recently. So, all right. So we've got this holder for the apple, and we've got this slicer. Let's put the apple on here. Let's start slicing. I hope it's slicing. It's so smooth I can't tell. Feels like it's going down. Alright, so the apple slicing is done. This mandolin tool is amazing. Get these perfectly sliced 3mm apple slices. So the next thing we're going to do is we've got our dryer dehydrated, ready to go. We read the instructions very carefully, as I mentioned before. There's something I need to point out for this. And it's something that they make very clear on the very first page of the manual. It says, warning, do not operate this appliance on a flammable surface such as a wood surface or any tablecloth. So any kind of material or wood or flammable surface, we do not want to put this on top of. I have a marble countertop, so I'm pretty good with that. But you know, anything else, you might want to buy some kind of a platform, a non-flammable platform. This does sit at about 145 degrees or so for long periods of time, and I suspect that may be a little dangerous. So we want to make sure we don't do that. The second thing is, they said with dehydrating things that may have a lot of liquid in them, for example orange slices or lemon slices, that there is a chance of dripping. So you have multiple trays of these things, and if they drip down, if you have different things on different trays, the flavor can drift. So they recommend parchment paper or other things. Now we're going to just do runs of individual things forever. It's always going to be the same. So the dripping and flavoring is not an issue, but it does state that if you allow liquids to accumulate in the bottom of the thing, it could damage the unit. We don't want our unit damaged. So what it recommends is, in order to maintain airflow, which is very important, is that you take some parchment paper or some other type of non-wax paper and cut a piece that forms to a single tray, and then cut it in half, and then put half on the bottom tray on one side and half on the next up tray on the other side. That gives you 2 layers of protection, but does not stop the airflow. And also, it's very important to leave the center of this, make sure that there's airflow to the center circle. So we've done all these things already. So we're going to go ahead and put this all together, and let's get to drying. So this is the base unit of the dehydrator. It's basically a heating element with a blowing type thing in the center. And then you have these trays. Now these trays sit in one of 2 ways. You can set them, set the first one normally, and then the next one you can offset 90 degrees, and the tabs, if you do that, the tabs will raise the tray a little higher if you have some thicker things that you're processing. As you can see, these are not thick, so we don't need the height advantage here. So we have our first layer. Let's go ahead and lay out some apple chips. Now, it also is very clear to point out that again, we don't put anything on the center hole, but we also don't overlap anything. If you overlap anything, then it may not dry properly. So let's just go ahead and lay these out. Now, 5 apples may be too much. I don't know. We're going to find that out too. A lot of experimentation going on here because we've never done this. We had no prior experience doing anything like this before. So all of this is new to us. All right, so there's our first tray. One of the other things this unit tells you to do prior to the first run is to run it with just a single tray in the lid for about an hour, because there's an odor based on the amount of preservatives they have on the motor and things like that needs to burn off. So we ran this last night, so if you don't do that, you can taint the flavor of your things. Now look, I want to show you this again. So if you notice right here, this is the low setting. This is very low and close to the apples. If you turn it 90 degrees, it like quadruples the distance between there. So we want to keep it low. I don't have any reason to have this spread open like that. And here's our other parchment paper. Okay, let's put some apples on that. So at this point now we have the entire bottom section protected, but yet there's still the opportunity for air to flow throughout the unit. Now this unit comes with 5 trays. You can purchase more trays, but I think if you do that, you have to be a little more careful about checking the dryness and rotating the trays, because those trays that are closest to the blower on the bottom are going to dry faster. So even with these 5 trays, we're going to check it and possibly rotate the trays later on in the process. So let's go ahead and finish this up and let's get this started. All right, last tray. All right, so it looks like our estimate of 5 apples was pretty accurate. Sorry, the only things left in the mandolin are just a few of the, there's a few, but a lot of these are broken and stuff like that. So for our nice aesthetic whole circle of apple chips, 5 apples seems to be perfect. So what we're going to do now is put the lid on. Now there is 3 temperature settings on this thing. There's a low, medium, and high, and it gives you examples of what you would have on each one. Low being like dried flowers and spices, medium being like mushrooms and diced vegetables, and high would be your fruit, vegetables, jerky, and stuff like that. So we're going to turn this on. We're going to turn it on high, and we're going to let it run for hours and hours and hours. They say check back in about 4 hours to see what it looks like and possibly rotate the trays. We're going to cook it for 4 hours and come back and see where we're at. The other thing is this is all trial and error, experimentation. They can't give you specific instructions, so I'll be keeping notes in a spreadsheet, and we're going to be trying a bunch of different things over time. So we'll after 4 hours on this, we'll come back and make some assessment on the dryness, and we'd like to have these kind of crisp. So maybe a little extra drying will happen. I don't know, but I guess we'll see here shortly. All right, come on back. We'll see you in a minute. All right, so I do want to point out that this is now running. A couple of things. The power cord is very short, as I'm finding on a lot of the Hamilton Beach appliances. I think it might be a 2-foot cord. I'd rather have it be 3 personally, but we got 2 feet. The other thing is, if you notice, it's very quiet. You can't hardly hear it running at all. The other thing is I can smell the apples in the air, which is, I was kind of hoping we would. I think it's amazing, and I'm excited about that. So hopefully the whole house will smell like apples here in a bit. All right, so we're gonna let this run, and we'll see you back here in about 4 hours.
One eternity later.
So as you can see, the apples are crisping up nicely. It's been about 3 hours that they've been dehydrating. I think another hour these are going to be done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate the trays just to make sure we've got an even consistent dehydration throughout the whole thing. So we're going to shut this down for a moment. We're going to rotate the trays, and we're going to start it back up and let it go for 1 more hour. All right, they've been rotated. We're going to give them about another hour, and I think they're going to be ready to eat.
1 hour later.
All right, here we are. Welcome back. We finished the apple chips. I'm going to shut the device off, and I'm going to pull all the apples out and put them in a little bowl that we can use, because we're going to snack on them while we watch the Hoosiers play Arkansas here in a minute. So let me get these out, and let's give them a try. Ooh, they're crispy. All right, and here we have a delicious bowl of apple chips. Let's give them a try and see what we think. They're quite tasty. Okay, so we're going to start our next project here in just a minute. We're going to make a batch of kale chips. Now, I'm not a big fan of kale, but my girlfriend and her mother like kale, so we're going to make kale chips and see how they turn out. Come on back next time for that episode. All right, we'll see you later.